Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's coming in the key. So we read from the Leelamrita, Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrita. And this is according to Srimad Bhagavatam, the prescribed method of worship for this age is Sankirtan, the chanting of the holy names of God. Sankirtan worship emanated from Mayapur, the original doll of Lord Chaitanya. In the age of Kali, states Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna appears in a golden form as Lord Chaitanya, and his activity is to chant Hare Krishna. People with sufficient intelligence will worship him in this form. Srila Prabhupada wanted to make the most wonderful worship of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his birthplace, and thus completely fulfill the predictions of the previous acharyas, who foresaw a great Vedic city rising from the plains of Navadvipa. Mayapur could also be considered Prabhupada's place of worship because the spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, had preached extensively there, and because the Samadhi was there. Since Srila Prabhupada's entire preaching mission was in the service of his spiritual master, he worshipped his spiritual master through preaching in Mayapur. Mayapur was the origin and symbol of preaching in Krishna consciousness, because there Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda actually began the Sankirtan movement that Prabhupada was now carrying all over the world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to preach the Sankirtan movement of love of Krishna throughout the entire world, and therefore during his presidency he inspired the Sankirtan movement. Specifically, he sent Rupa Goswami to Vrindavan and Nityananda to Bengal, and he personally went to South India. In this way, he kindly left the task of preaching his cult in the rest of the world to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Vrindavan is Prabhupada's residence. Religious people in India, as well as religious scholars in the West, saw Prabhupada as a Vaishnava sailing from Vrindavan. When he began his preaching in New York, he would often introduce himself as coming from Vrindavan. Here I am now sitting in New York, he once said, the world's greatest city, but my heart is always hankering after that Vrindavan. I shall be very happy to return to my Vrindavan, that sacred place. The people of Vrindavan also followed Prabhupada as their hometown success. Upon retiring from family life in 1954, Prabhupada had gone to live in Vrindavan, first at a temple in the Ishghat and then the Radhamada temple. After taking sannyas in 1959, he had continued to reside in Vrindavan, and when not living there, to reserve his 2 rooms at Radhamada. Vrindavan is the home of Krishna consciousness, the place of Krishna's childhood pastimes, a place where the 6 Goswamis, sent by Lord Chaitanya, had excavated holy places, written transcendental literature, and built temples. Any devotee could feel at home there, and thousands of Vrindavan residents carried bead bags, chanted Hare Krishna, and wore the Vaishnava tea-like dress. Vrindavan belonged to Radha and Krishna, and this was still acknowledged by the residents of the present-day Vrindavan. Ultimately, Vrindavan is revealed only to the pure devotee. Vrindavan is the eternal residence of all spiritual souls in their eternal relationship with Krishna. The Vrindavan in India is a transcendental replica of Goloka Vrindavan, the eternal planet where Krishna resides in the spiritual world. The pure devotees aspire to attain to Goloka Vrindavan after finishing their life in this world. And Prabhupada, therefore, as a pure devotee of Krishna, naturally felt at home in Vrindavan. He sometimes said that if he were to become very ill, he would prefer not to go to a hospital, but to simply go to Vrindavan and there pass his last days. To spread the glories of Vrindavan, Prabhupada had left Vrindavan, but like a traveler away from home, he always thought of returning. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So that's the end of that Leelamrita, actually. So that means we must be on number 6. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is Canto 5, Chapter 2, entitled The Activities of Maharaj and Agnidra. And this is text 8. Bana Imo Bhagavata Shata Patro Bana Vimo Bhagavata Shata Patro Santa Apunka Ruchira Ati Tigma Dantu Shanta Apunka Ruchira Ati Tigma Danto Kasma Yuyun Kashi Vare Vicharan Vidma Kasmi Yuyum Shashi Vani Vicharana Vidma Shemaya No Jada Diyam Tava Vikramo Stu Shemaya no Jadadiyam Tava Vikramo Stu Bana Vimo Bhagavata Shati Patra Patro Shanta Vapunkachi Ruchiravati Sigmadanto Kasmaya Yum Shashivani Vicharana Vidma Shemaya no Jadadiyam Tava Vikramostu Bana Vimo Bhagavata Shati Patra Patro Shanta Vapunka Ruchiravati Tigmadanto Kasmaya Yum Shashivani Vicharana Vidma Shemaya no Jadadiyam Tava Vikramostu Bana Vimo Bhagavata Shatapatra Patro Shanta Vapunka Ruchiravati Tigmadanto Kasmaya Yum Shashivani Vicharana Vidma Shemaya no Jadadiyam Tava Vikramostu
Bana Vimo Bhagavata Shatapatra Patro
Bana Vimo Bhagavata Shatapatra Patro
Shantava Punka Ruchiravati Tigmadanto
Shantava Punka Ruchiravati Tigmadanto
Kasmaya Yum Shasi Vale Vicharana Vidma
Kasmaya Yum Shashivani Vicharana Vidma
Shemaya no Jadadiyam Tava Vikramostu
Shemaya no Jadadiyam Tava Vikramostu
Vanavimo Bhagavata Shatapatra Patro
Banavamo Bhagavata Satrapatra Patro
Santa Vapunka Ruchiravati Tikmatanto
Shanta Vapunka Ruchirava Titigmadanto
Kasmai Viyungshasi Vane Vicharanna Vidmaha
Kasmai Yukshasivane Vicharana Vidma
Kshemaya no Jadapiyam Tapa Vikramostu
Shevaya Nujadaviyam Tava Vikramosu Bano
Vano
2 arrows
Two
Immo these Bhagavata
Bhagavata
of you the most powerful
of you the most powerful
Kshatrapatra Patro
Shatapatra Patro
having feathers like the petals of a lotus flower
having feathers like petals of lotus flower
Shanto
Shanto
peaceful
peaceful
Apunka
Apunka
without a shaft
without a shaft
Ruchiro
Ruchiro
very beautiful
very beautiful
Atitigmadanto
Tikmatanto
having a very sharp point
having a very sharp point
Kasmai whom Yungshasi
Viyungshasi
you want to pierce
you want to pierce
Vane
Vane
in the forest
in the forest
Vicharan
Vicharan
loitering
loitering
Navidma
Navidma
we cannot understand
we cannot understand
Shemaya
Shemaya
for welfare
for welfare
No
No
of us
of us
Jadidiyam
Jadadiyam
who are dull-headed
you are dull-headed
Tava
Tava
your Vikrama
Vikrama
prowess
Prowess
Astu
Astu
may be
Maybe
translation then Agnidra observed the glancing eyes of Puvachiti and said, my dear friend, you have 2 very powerful arrows, namely your glancing eyes. These arrows have feathers like the petals of a lotus flower. Although they have no shafts, they are very beautiful and they have very sharp piercing points. They appear very peaceful and thus it seems that they will not be shot at anyone. You must be loitering in this forest to shoot those arrows at someone, but I cannot understand whom. My intelligence is dull, and I cannot combat you. Indeed, no one can equal you in prowess, and therefore I pray that your prowess will be for my good fortune. Responsibly, please. Then Agnidra observed the glancing eyes
and Anitra observed the glancing eyes
of Puvachiti
of Pavachiti
and said,
and said,
my dear friend,
my dear friend,
you have 2 very powerful arrows,
you have 2 very powerful arrows,
namely your glancing eyes.
namely your glancing eyes.
Those arrows have feathers
Those arrows have feathers
like the petals of a lotus flower.
like the petals of a lotus flower.
Although they have no shafts,
Although they have no shafts,
they are very beautiful
they are very beautiful,
and they have very sharp piercing points.
and they have very sharp piercing points.
They appear very peaceful
They appear very peaceful,
and thus it seems that they will not be shot at anyone.
and thus it seems they will not be shot at anyone.
You must be loitering in this forest
You must be loitering in this forest
to shoot those arrows
to shoot those arrows
at someone,
at someone,
but I cannot understand whom.
but I cannot understand who.
My intelligence is dull,
My intelligence is dull,
and I cannot combat you.
and I cannot combat you.
Indeed, no one can equal you in prowess,
Indeed, no one can equal you in power,
and therefore I pray
and therefore I pray
your prowess
that your prowess
will be for my good fortune.
will be for my good fortune.
Therefore, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Agnidra thus began appreciating Pavachiti's powerful glance upon him. He compared her glancing eyes to very sharp arrows. Although her eyes were as beautiful as lotuses, they were simultaneously like shaftless arrows, and Agni was therefore afraid of him. He hoped that her glances upon him would be favorable, because he was already captivated, and the more captivated he became, the more impossible it would be for him to remain without her. Agnidra therefore prayed to Purvachati that her glances at him would be auspicious, not futile. In other words, he prayed that she would become his wife. Om Jnana Shaganandana Shalakaya Chaksharan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Gaurabhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it's interesting, Purvachati is firing arrows in the form of glances from her eyes, and Agnidra is he doesn't realize that he's already been shot by the arrows, and he's hoping she's not going to shoot the arrows, but he's already fallen in love with her. Love at first sight. They have that expression, don't they? Love at first sight. It's interesting when we did that drama, Liquid Beauty. It was love at first sight, but actually it wasn't love at first sight anymore. So first impressions can be deceiving. Anyway, he's been captivated by Purvachati's beauty and by her eyes. Her eyebrows are compared to bows. You see that when a lady raises her eyebrows, and she can fire arrows from her eyes. At least if she's pretty, anyway. They appear very peaceful, and thus it seems that they will not be shot at anyone. You must be loitering in this forest to shoot those arrows at someone. So anyway, in the purple Prabhupada is saying, although our eyes were as beautiful as lotuses, they were simultaneously like shaftless arrows, and Agnidra was therefore afraid. So what he was really afraid of was that he wouldn't be able to have Purvachati for his enjoyment. So this is what causes fear, attachment to material enjoyment. So they say devotee is fearless. So devotee is fearless because he's detached. The more attached, then the more fear. Attachment is like defending. When we're defending things, we're defending because we're afraid. We're defending our eating facilities, our sleeping facilities, and our mating facilities. So that's what we're afraid of losing. That's where our attachments are. So he hoped that her glances would be favourable because he was already captivated. And the more captivated he became, the more impossible it would be for him to remain without her. So this is he explained also in the Bhagavad Gita, whilst contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment, and then it just gets more and more entangling, and it becomes entangled in the cobweb of material attraction. So in the Bhagavatam it says, Apana samsita gora, yan nama vishogara, that even if you unconsciously chant the holy names of Krishna, who is freed by fear personified, you can be freed from the complicated meshes of birth and death. So the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is freeing us from this attachment, and the ultimate attachment is the attachment between the opposite sexes. So the story is here in the Bhagavatam to warn us of the danger and to help us protect ourselves, insulate ourselves with knowledge, And from true knowledge comes detachment. It's interesting that we have so many facilities in the West now for education and for acquiring knowledge, but there's no exam to test how detached you've become, and that type of knowledge is referred to in the Bhagavad Gita as ignorance. And it's interesting, isn't it? Ignorance is the word ignore. If you're ignoring the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your relationship with Him, then that's a form of ignorance. And if instead you're acquiring all this knowledge, and then you're cultivating attachment to the material energy, then it's not real knowledge. Real knowledge is disentangling, and illusory knowledge is entangling. The whole idea of knowledge is to help us become free from the material world. And if it's entangling us even more, then it's counterproductive. It's not actually knowledge. Knowledge is to take you to the light. If the knowledge is taking you away from the light, then it's not real knowledge. In fact, Krishna says, whatever there may be apart from this is ignorance, is darkness. Tesham Vivanakampada. To show them special mercy, Jnanadipena Vasvata. I shine, shining lamp of knowledge, Jnanadipena. I show them special mercy. That's when I show them special mercy. So they may be doing all their studies, but if Krishna isn't pleased, then he won't enlighten them. And if if Krishna becomes pleased, then they get the Eureka. The Eureka is Hare Krishna. Eureka is a perverted reflection of Hare Krishna, the moment of enlightenment. So interesting, he was very attracted. He was afraid that, immediately he was afraid that he was going to lose it. So, I mean, with attachment comes the fear of losing what you're becoming attached to. And he'd become captivated. And so therefore he was praying to Parvati that she would become his wife. Anyway, it's a bit more refined than what's going on today. So we're reverting back to the caveman syndrome, although there was never really any caveman, but the idea that you just go up to the opposite sex and hit her on the head with a club. Or hit her on the head in a club. Just when it's like that. And once she's intoxicated, then you drag her back to the cave. So, a little bit more refined. You don't see many people going up to a lady and praying, please, I've become captivated by you, would you please become my wife? So we've really gone down the slippery slope since the good old days. And Bhagavatam's nice because it's showing as well, this is supposed to be the standard, you know. This is actually what's supposed to be going on. If you do have this attraction, then let's go about this in an orderly way. And then maybe there's a chance we can get out eventually. So it starts off wrong and just gets worse. Further and further away from the truth. And things are becoming so confused these days. People don't even know how to enjoy themselves. There is a way to have enjoyment in the material world and eventually become free from it if it's still in a regulated and controlled way. And we follow proper culture and proper etiquette and proper respect is there, then it's possible to become disentangled. So he's made his prayer, and I can't help but resist but read on because it's an exciting story. And it's only 8 o'clock. Seeing the bumblebees following Parvati, Maharaj Agnitra said, "My dear Lord, the bumblebees surrounding your body are like disciples surrounding your worshipful self. They are incessantly chanting the mantras of the Samaveda and the Upanishads and offering prayers to you. Just as great sages resort to the branches of Vedic literature, the bumblebees are enjoying the showers of flowers falling from your hair. So he's obviously very well and truly captivated. Oh Brahmin, so he doesn't know she's a lady right now. I can simply hear the tinkling of your ankle bells. Within those bells, titiri birds seem to be chirping among themselves. Although I do not see their forms, I can hear how they are chirping. When I look at your beautiful circular hips, I see they are the lovely colour of kandama flowers, and your waist is encircled by a belt of burning cinders. Indeed, you seem to have forgotten to dress yourself. With lusty desire to see perpetuity, Agnidra especially gazed upon the girl's attractive hips and waist. When a man looks upon a woman with such lusty desires, he is captivated by her face, her breasts, and her waist. For a woman first attracts a man to fulfill his sexual desires by the beautiful features of her face, by the beautiful slope of her breasts, and also by her waist. Parvati was dressed in fine yellow silk, and therefore her hips looked like kandama flowers. Because of her belt, her waist seemed to be encircled by burning cinders. She was fully dressed, but Agitra had become so lusty that he asked, why have you come naked? So I'll just read the next ones. Agnidra then praised Perpetuity's raised breasts. He said, my dear Brahma, your waist is very thin, yet with great difficulty you are carrying 2 horns to which my eyes have become attracted. What is filling those 2 beautiful horns? You seem to have spread fragrant red powder upon them, powder that is like the rising morning sun. O most fortunate one, I beg to inquire, where have you got this fragrant powder that is perfuming my ashram, my place of residence? Prabhupada. Agnidra appreciated Perpetuity's raised breasts. After seeing the girl's breasts, he became almost mad. Nevertheless, he could not recognize whether Perpetuity was a boy or a girl, for as a result of his austerity, he saw no distinction between the 2. He therefore addressed her with the word Dvija, or Brahman. Yet why should a Dvija, a Brahman boy, have horns on his chest? Because the boy's waist was thin, Agnidra thought he was carrying the horns with great difficulty, and therefore they must be filled with something very valuable. Otherwise, why would he carry them? When a woman's waist is thin and her breasts are full, she looks very attractive. Agnidra, his eyes attracted, contemplated the heavy breasts on the girl's thin body and imagined how her back must sustain them. Agnidra imagined that her raised breasts were 2 horns she had covered with cloth, so that others would not see the valuables within them. Agnidra, however, was very anxious to see them. Therefore he requested, please uncover them, so that I can see what you are carrying. Rest assured that I shall not take it away. If you feel an inconvenience in removing the covering, I can help you. I myself can uncover them to see what valuable things those raised horns contain. He was also surprised to see the red dust of perfumed kumkum spread over her breasts. Nevertheless, still considering Perpetuity a boy, Agnidra addressed her as a Subhaga, most fortunate Muni. The boy must have been fortunate, otherwise, how simply by standing there could he perfume Agnidra's entire ashram? So interesting that Agnidra is very innocent, he's been purified by his austerities, so he can't distinguish anymore between male and female. There was another story like that, wasn't there? There was a sage, and he was tempted, and his father had kept all female things away from the ashram, and then eventually when he saw one, he thought it was a brahmachari with an unusual shapes under his curtain. Do you remember who that was?
Shrishriya.
Oh, okay. And he got tempted by the smell, wasn't it? That's how It was the smell, and they got to taste nice things, right? And eventually ended up on the boat.
They needed to take him to, they needed to take him to a kingdom because it was they had a drought.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And by his entrance,
It was auspicious, yeah. And then he ended up getting married, didn't he, in Spain?
You see, to do with the birth of Lord Ramachandra. They needed to bring him away from the forests.
It's interesting, isn't it, that the way the illusion is devised, it's in such a way that the attraction between the male and the female is there, and the form, and even though Agnidra has performed austerity so that he's not impelled by the normal kind of fantasies that people meditate on. So he's completely innocent and completely pure. Just the way the material energy works, he becomes seduced by the shapes. He doesn't even think that they're actually their breast, he's just thinking their horns, because he's become very attracted to want to see what's in the horns, you know. So the actual form is of fascination. So it's very difficult for atheists to explain. In the 16th chapter, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, they consider that this material world is just illusory, but they're very expert in enjoying it. They don't really feel it has any real foundation, no godly control. They say it is produced of sex desire and has no cause other than this. So it'd be very hard to explain how there's this arrangement, you know, it's not three things, it's two things, it's not one thing, it's this particular configuration of shapes that has this effect. The thin waist, the raised breast, the beautiful face, the lotus-like eyes. It has such a captivating effect. So with some contemplation, one could meditate, well, where's this original attraction coming from? And the Adi Ras is the attraction between Radharani and Krishna. This is originally where it's all coming from. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport to the first text of the first canto, the first chapter, he says, because the Mayavadis are saying that there is no Radha and Krishna, there's no original form, then they've given emphasis to the mundane form. Whereas actually, it would be more logical to conclude that this captivation is there because there's some original reality that this is coming from, and this original dynamic between the attraction between the male and the female is reflected here onto the material energy, indicating something else, some profound absolute truth. You know.
it says how before the reason why he performed austerities to please Lord Brahma, the demigod, to do demigod worship for why? So because he wanted to attain Pitriloka. And so and Prabhupada said before how he was expert in flattery. So I was wondering if this is just just double meaning, you know, just talking in one way, but hopefully she'll take it in a way that's favourable for him. Just kind of, in case maybe protecting her innocence, in case she wants to reject him or something, I don't know. But
So his intention was, he was looking for a wife. Lord Brahma sent this girl along.
yeah.
It's interesting also when the pastime of Devahuti and Kadama Muni that he saw the Lord, he had the Lord's darshan, and then he said, I'm actually looking for a nice wife. And then Lord Vishnu said, well, I've already made the arrangement, that's already going to happen in a few days, because I already knew that that's what you wanted. And then Prabhupada in the purport, he says, if you just depend upon the Lord and pray to Him, then He will arrange that you get the perfect wife, which is just suitable for you. So, King Agni's Ra wasn't down the local nightclub trying to find a nice girl. He was leaving it to the arrangement of the Lord and his devotees to send along an appropriate person that would be just compatible for him. So this is the best system, and not going on. Not trying to initiate the situation directly yourself. You just go into a room full of the opposite sex, and you just try and choose one and then try and go over and seduce them and enable them by your prowess. So that causes all kinds of problems. So this system is much better than we see. He found her attractive, completely attractive. So Lord Brahma was obviously very expert in knowing exactly what would fit the bill.
In the 11th canto, it says, Krishna says, Adhoksaja sang Purvachiti.
Oh, really? So she was really.
He had no chance to even.
Yeah. So he got the best. So this is only, he wouldn't have got that if he'd have just tried to hunt around in the forest on his own initiative. So it's showing how if we develop this prayerful mood and depending on the Lord to make the arrangement for us. And what's nice about that is it increases your faith, just like all the demigod worship is just to try and build up the person's faith, so it eventually starts following higher injunctions. So this is a way of building up the faith. So you have some material desire, you approach the Lord, He fulfills the desire so amazingly perfectly, and you become so overwhelmed with gratitude that you're thinking, well, the Lord was so kind to make this whole arrangement for me. And then that feeling of gratitude is even deeper than the attraction and affection that you have for the objects that Krishna is sending along. So Krishna sends along a nice car, you want a car, you see this beautiful car, and you have the car, and you're attracted to the car, and you like the car, but then you become even more attracted and more affectionate to the Lord, that you realize, well, He sent this for me, He's so kind, He's so considerate that He sent this along. So that's how in Krishna consciousness we eventually escape. It's interesting, we had a 4-week course by Bhakti Prabhav Maharaj on controlling the mind. And I kept wanting to ask this question, and I just either forgot when it was time to ask the questions, or it was not the appropriate. And I kept having this question I was wanting to ask was, can we circumvent all the difficulties of controlling the mind by just directly going to the heart? And then right at the end, he concluded the whole talk by saying that the best way to control the mind is to chant Hare Krishna with affection. So that answered it for me, that if you can develop this affection for Krishna, that will take you out of all the mental platform and problems we have with austerities and controlling the mind and attachment to material things. If you can develop this affection for Krishna, then that will take us out of the material energy more easily and more directly than anything else. We can circumvent all the intermediary stages.
So you're saying how we can go on about attachment, and we shouldn't do this and we shouldn't do that, and the other, but just by developing an attachment and attraction to Krishna, then we automatically become detached.
Yeah.
We know what we need to be detached from, but in case we get it wrong, but at the same time, we need to, by that attachment, we just automatically become detached because it's so absorbed in pleasing Him. Yeah,
because it's that's actually what we're really looking for, you see. Everybody's looking for Krishna, and some don't realize that they are. So along the way, we don't realize we're looking for Krishna because we haven't realized Krishna. So we don't realize it's Krishna that we really want. it's only when Krishna reveals himself, it's like, okay, this is what I wanted. This is actually what I was really looking for. So if we can just have that strong faith that I don't fully understand this, don't fully realize this, but somehow or other, I know that this is what it must be, that I'm looking for you, Krishna. So please, can you reveal yourself? Can you make me conscious of you? Can you give me a darshan? When I was a little boy, I was given a leaflet by a Christian, and it was a picture of a man going up a beanstalk, popping his head through the clouds, and at the top of the clouds was a pair of feet. And the man was like this. He was coming out of the clouds. It was kind of like coming up a beanstalk, and he kind of had his hands like that. And he was looking like that, and there was a ledge, and then there was the Lord's feet, and he was like that. And I was thinking, I wonder what he's looking at. I wonder what it must look like. He looks really happy anyway, you know. He's like, wow, you know, better than looking at any naked woman or any far-out car or the latest gizmo. He's like, wow, you know, this is what I wanted, you know. So we want that moment as quickly as possible that we see Krishna. I mean, we see Krishna in the painting, we see Krishna in the deity, but we want to actually see that it's Krishna. We want the darshan, you know. Once you get it, then everything will be pale in comparison. But Krishna's reluctant to give that. It's very rare that he gives that. You have to really, Shiva Rama was saying, it takes a long time, even though it's like the guy got his head out of the clouds, but it took a long time to get up there, to actually get to the point. And then Krishna decides, okay, he's been trying for a long time, and he does seem pretty sincere. Srimati Radharani says, come on, you know, he's your devotee. And it's okay. And then fine. And then when that happens, then that's the jackpot. That's the spiritual lottery. That's what we're looking for. And along the way, we just have to be careful we don't become distracted by thinking that there's something else.
We get different tastes of that as we go along, like
Little glimpses.
with when we discuss, it's like pure devotees take delight in enlightening one another, conversing about Krishna. And Krishna, when those discussions take place, then Krishna appears in that, and if we sound properly, or if he appears if we're, you know, like that. So it's just a matter of being fixed. Exactly.
And also, it's just a question of how, for those that are online, Mother Brinda is saying even before the moment of getting the full darshan of the Lord, just like the sun rises, in the morning you don't see the sun, but you know that the sun is there because things are starting to get light, but the sun hasn't come up over the horizon just yet. So the devotees are experiencing, to some degree, the presence of Krishna in his holy name, in discussions about him, in his deity form, in prasadam, and in acts of devotion. We're becoming aware that Krishna is watching over our shoulder, and that's nice, but still, it's even nicer when the sun comes up. When the sun comes up over the horizon, when you achieve bhav, when you understand who you are in relationship to Krishna. We're building up to that point, and that's actually what we want.
This is how we get Krishna by one quality to get Krishna is by our eagerness to happen.
Yeah.
So the more we engage in these preliminary activities, the eternal means at the end of here in China. So the more we're eager for them, then the more Krishna is inclined to give his full darshan.
Yeah. It's reciprocal, isn't it? So, but the funny thing is, it seems to us that Krishna is less reciprocal, because we're thinking, well, I'm trying really hard and Krishna doesn't seem to be giving me a lot of, I've been doing this for so long now, I don't seem to be getting much back from Krishna. And yet Krishna wants us back more than we want to go back. So then we have to examine, well, how eager I'm thinking I'm eager. It's like we may think that we believe certain things, but by the way we act, it contradicts what we think we believe. So we have to look at how we're. And we may think it's really, really important to do something, and because we think it's really important to do something, therefore we think that's it, then I'm off the hook. I fully understand that this is important, but we don't actually do it. We might consider it really important to be on time, and because of that, then I think, well, I'm a person with high values. I think you should be on time, but we're not on time ourselves. So we may accept something theoretically, but we don't actually implement it. So we have to try and align the way we're acting with what we believe, and that takes some time to do. We believe that it's good to be eager to go to Krishna, give everything else up, but when it comes down to it, we may not be that enthusiastic to actually want to do it. But we think, well, I must be really enthusiastic to want to do it because I really believe that you should do. But that's not the same. So there's a gap between things that we've accepted and we believe, and things that we practice and implement. And we have to practice them on a regular basis. Not I'm on time once a year, so that makes me punctual. It has to become a habit. It's interesting. This habit. Habit is formed from desire, skill, and knowledge. So the three things have to be there. You have to gain the ability. You have to acquire the knowledge, the sambandha, and then you have to implement the abhideya. And then even then, it still takes some time. Even you do everything, you get all the different things together, and then you start practicing it, abhideya. But then you've still got to go from where you are across to where you should be, and you're moving towards Krishna.
Could that theoretical understanding be considered vibhukta manas?
Yeah, it could be. It could be that you're thinking you're liberated, but you're only liberated in your mind. Yeah, that's why.
Some personalism.
It is. If it's not personalism, if we're not fully aware of our relationship with Krishna and acting in that relationship, then it must be impersonalism to one degree or another. And impersonalism is a way of desensitizing ourselves to the tragic fact that we've lost our relationship with Krishna. So so there's a gap, and we believe a lot of things in Krishna consciousness, and now the challenge is, okay, can we make those things real? To realize something means to make it real. If you say, well, he's okay, but he's not a very real person, well, he's not a very realized person. If he's a kind of insincere or superficial person, then he's not very real. So as you become more realized, you become more genuine, and your level of integrity increases, and your consistency increases, and then your depth of understanding and your affection for Krishna and his parts and parcels. As you love Krishna, then automatically you love his parts and parcels. And it's interesting, isn't it? In the Ishopanishad, it says if you can see the supersoul in everyone's heart, you become free from the mentality of wanting to exploit it and degrade it. So if Maharaj Agnitra could see that Purvachati was had the Lord in her heart, and she'd been made by the Lord, and was the walking temple with the Lord inside, then the attitude of want to enjoy that wouldn't be there.
In one sense, it's like believing in a lie.
Believing in a lie.
And everything else of the relationship with Krishna is like a lie, illusion. And then that makes one more degraded. So the safest place to be is Srimad abuse and Srimad abuse. We feel we don't, or we feel like it's like the cycle is always considers himself falling before the spiritual master. So don't pretend that we do know or get involved in that line and so Srimad abuse and Srimad.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to be careful we're not deceiving ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves and honestly assess what is our level of realization. And I don't know if you've seen it, but there's this exercise they do with people. They get them to have a false arm. Well, they put the arm like this on the table, and then they put a screen there, and then the person puts his arm on the other side of the screen, so he can't see his arm. He can only see this false arm, and he knows it's a false arm. And then they start stroking the arm, and looking after it really nicely. And then they suddenly get a hammer and just hit the arm. Now, when they get the hammer and hit the arm, he goes, ah! Because even though he knows it's not his arm, once they're being nice to it, he starts becoming attached to thinking he's the arm, you see. So it's interesting, isn't it, that because of the illusion, the lie of identifying with the false ego, and then it seems like we're getting some nice sensation from it, or we're getting some nice recognition, and people are really starting to appreciate it, and they're thinking, okay, well, maybe it's not so bad then to consider this all myself. And then, so the ego is like that as well. If you have ego, false ego, then you have to defend it, and you don't like being corrected or chastised or being shown that you're less than you thought you were. So then you start to become your own enemy, because you're not allowing yourself to become detached, to see that this is not worth defending. It's not really you. You're identifying with it as you because you're thinking you're going to get some kind of gratification out of it. So you have to be your own friend. You have to be well-intentioned for yourself, what is for my real welfare. And that's why the knowledge is so important, so that we can identify that this isn't real, this isn't worth defending, this isn't worth being attached to.
It reminds me of Krishna, when Arjuna was perplexed. Krishna's response was, how have these impurities gone upon you? So I was thinking, that's a kind of perfect counselling, like you're saying.
Yeah.
You're better than this sort of thing. How is this happening to you?
Yeah. Which you can say to yourself. You can speak like Krishna is speaking to us all the time in the heart, and saying, "You're better than this. I didn't design you to be like this." And if we can become aware of what our real potential is, our real potency.
Because we were created to give Krishna pleasure, so we've got that potency, we've got that ability to please the most amazing person. So,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, which is nice meditation. And by chanting Hare Krishna and engaging in devotional activity, then you're getting tuned into a very intimate and very rare situation. You're being allowed to access that. We have all the acharyas, all the amazing acharyas in our line, who are, very special personalities, even on a cosmic level, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada. I was reading this morning about Rupa Goswami. He was composing this poetry, and Ramananda Roy is asking him about this and that, and Rupa Goswami is explaining. And they're just astounded at his ability in this thing. This is only because you've been Lord Chaitanya has given you his full mercy. So isn't that amazing that we come in that line and we have access. We can think of Rupa Goswami, we can pray to Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, amazing personalities, and to one degree or another they'll be aware of us, of our prayers, and ask them for their inspiration and their protection so that we can tread along on this path. Rupa Goswami describes the path of bhakti as it's crooked and it's slippery because it's covered in sandalwood paste and kumkum. So it's tricky. It's tricky getting up the material energy and walking along the path. We need all the help we can get.
It's also so very sad that people without this knowledge, they ignoring their own kind of real identity and something deeper than they don't see that in others and see them as objects of exploitation. Kali Yuga mixed into the Kali Yuga, all these horrors take place in the world, and so the need for Krishna consciousness to get out there to rid people.
Yeah, we have to become beacons of Krishna consciousness. We have to become glowing, effulgent embodiments of pure love, so that people immediately, by coming in contact with us, they have faith that they should chant the holy names, and if they're in a kirtan, they immediately get some ruchi, some taste. So Srila Prabhupada showed the example to encourage us that it wasn't until toward the end of his life that he really manifested his full Shakti. He was there all the time, of course, but it can encourage us that maybe I'm a late developer, but if I can blossom in Krishna consciousness, then I can have such an impact on people. That from our association, people become convinced that Krishna must be there, just like Srila Prabhupada was able to do the same. Jai, so I'll finish there. Iskam Guru in the Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Gaur Premanandi. All of you. I got those